What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones, obviously joining me from Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. There was a lot of stuff going on behind you now. A few minutes ago, AJ, it seems to have died down a little bit. At least I can't.
No, they're right over here. They're right over here. They're breaking everything down. The Bullets are Wizards. Where the Wizards have a game all night, but they're breaking it down now. Mm-hmm. So they gave the media 1 hour after. They said 1 hour after the last press conference, but they're doing it a lot quicker.
Yeah, I don't think it's been that long.
You know, it's conference championship game, and it's kind of hard to do a lot of these things when this stuff's going on when it can be done later, but we'll operate best we can.
Yeah, we'll push through on this one, and obviously, like AJ said, do the best job we can on this. We're here following Carolina's 84-76 loss to NC State in the ACC Championship final. I'm going to run through some stats real quick, and then we'll dive into it. RJ Davis led the way. I mean, feels like I say that every game. 30 points for RJ Davis. We'll talk about maybe a little bit of an over-reliance on him and Armando Bacot, who finished with 18 points. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Harrison Ingram pitched in 10, and Cormac Ryan scored 8, which was a relatively quiet nights for them. Tar Heel shot 37% from the floor and just 26% from three. But AJ, this is where we have to start. It was evident from minute one. I think I tweeted it about 5 minutes into the game that State was just a more physical and more aggressive team. Carolina didn't have that intensity. And in some ways, it reminded me, I was trying to wrap my head around, okay, what is this flat performance? Because I thought it was a flat performance from North Carolina, really from minute one to the final minute of the game. It's my opinion. It reminded me a bit of the Clemson game. And you could the Clemson game at home, I should say. And you can understand that a little bit because there was a very quick, 48-hour turnaround between the first Duke game and the Clemson game. Players just didn't come ready to play in that one. But AJ, going into this game, you're saying, okay, State's fifth game in 5 nights. Expect them to be a little bit tired. Maybe expect Carolina to come out of the gates, running, trying to get State out in transition. And we didn't see that. If anything, it looked like Carolina was the team that was playing its fifth game in 5 days. So that's what it looked like to me on TV. Was it the same in the arena? Because, again, I just didn't think Carolina came to play tonight.
You could see in the first 2 possessions for both teams that State had a different level of intensity. And as Coach K used to always say, verve, they had it. Carolina didn't have it. And they never got it. There are a couple of times I thought they had some decent runs. They took the lead twice. But they took the lead when they got some buckets from other guys, and RJ kind of did some RJ stuff in some stretches, but they didn't sustain it. Sorry about this, guys, but they didn't sustain it. And it started on the defensive end. State shot 60% in the first. It was 58%. 5 minutes into the second half, State was shooting 60%. It reminded me more of the Syracuse game. Mm-hmm. The Syracuse game was one where, like at least with Clemson, they caught Clemson, and Clemson kind of went through a stretch where they weren't great offensively in that game. Carolina never stopped Syracuse. Syracuse shot 63% for the game. They never found a way to stop State. Horn picks up his 4th foul, and it took Carolina 15 minutes to get his 5th foul, and it didn't. It was all elementary at that point. They were done. Carolina was. They were so out of character on so many levels. We're going to talk about some of that, but I think the first thing was they just didn't match the intensity. I think human nature is part of this. You hear 5 games in 5 days, 5 games in 5 days. They beat them twice. They wore them down a couple of weeks ago. State was playing pretty well, and then they missed 15 straight shots in the second half, and Carolina got the win. Maybe they expected State to kind of wilt again. And I know a lot of people on press row were. I know I was. And about 4 minutes into the second half, I turned to Adam Smith and I said, you know what? Maybe they're not going to wear down. And that was about the time where we recognized that Carolina started to play a little tighter. And they got tighter. It looked like a March loss where a higher seed loses because they realize, you know what, this thing ain't going to go the way we thought it was. We got to pick ourselves up. And remember, I've talked before about you got to bring stuff out to the floor with you. All that stuff. You got to dump your bag out on the floor. Well, they didn't really bring their full bag today. So when they dumped it out on the floor with 15 minutes left, 12 minutes left, and they're trailing, and State is close to pushing this thing to 12, 14, 15. It certainly felt like it was 14, 15. But Carolina didn't have the things in their bag to stop it. And then they became way too reliant on RJ. And you could just see a team tight, guys passing up shots, Harrison passing up shots, Seth passing up a 3 one time, driving into the lane, turning it over, and the next possession taking a 3 that didn't look comfortable from the other corner. They were just way out of character, and it began with not matching State's intensity, and that alone put them behind in every conceivable way. State checked every box that Carolina didn't check today, and we'd like to talk check boxes, so we will. And you got to credit State because they kept going to Carolina. Did not figure out a way to stop Burns. They didn't have any of those cuts. I asked Seth Trimble in the locker room. I said, because he said that Carolina didn't have enough heart, and that's his word. He said they didn't have enough heart on defense. And I said, where does that lack of heart show up more? Is it more when you allow the cuts and regularly you guys were trailing the cutter? Or is it trying to defend the perimeter and guys are slow on the rotation on the perimeter? And he said, well, it was with everything we did. And he's sitting right next to RJ when he said that, and RJ's interviews had finished. And I think RJ kind of nodded a little bit. And it was with everything. It began with aggressiveness, intensity, verve, spirit, want, all those kind of things. And State had it. Carolina didn't. And even when Carolina was frantically trying to make a push there late, getting turnovers and not producing, they missed 11 straight shots in the last 4.5 minutes of the game. They missed 14 out of 15 in that stretch because they were forcing shots. They were too short. They were too hard. They had some bricks. It was pretty ugly stuff, but they got to that point where they did all those things wrong because of what they didn't have out of the gate. State had it, and even though Carolina took the lead twice, I still think that State had more of the juice that it needed than Carolina had. It was an awful performance for the Tar Heels. It was a wonderful performance for NC State and a wonderful story. And the ACC gets another team in, and I'll be ticked if Pitt's not in. They should get 6 now, but they won't. And I'm just wondering if this knocks Carolina out of the one out west because of what Iowa State did today. You beat Houston by 30, and Carolina loses to a 10 seed. You never know. I think they're probably pretty safe with the 1, but if they aren't, then they really screwed themselves today, and they have a tough lesson to learn. So you got to come out ready to play, man. You cannot overlook anybody in March. I don't care if it's a team that's played 100 straight days. They're there for a reason. You think about the programs that NC State beat this week, just the programs from a historical standpoint and then recent history. Louisville historically, Syracuse historically, Duke historically, Virginia recent history, and North Carolina.
Yeah. I saw somebody tweet about it, but every team that State, there's only a certain amount of teams in the ACC that have ever won a national championship. State beat every one of them this week. Like you mentioned, there's schemes you just mentioned, all of them have won a national championship at some point. So
they all won national championships this century.
Yeah, it's a good point. Now, I agree with you. State was fantastic tonight, and just felt like one of those
last 21 years. They've all won them in the last 21 years.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, heck of a run from the Wolfpack, and again, they deserved it. They deserved the win. There's no doubt about it. I think any honest Carolina fan would tell you that when you just take it for what it was tonight. State was the better team from minute 1 to the very end of the game. But you talked a little bit about that out of sync offensively for North Carolina. Extremely evident, particularly in that second half. And I think the biggest concern in the second half, and maybe even going back to yesterday a little bit too with the win over Pittsburgh, over-reliance on Armando and RJ. I mean, we just saw it again tonight. I'll throw some stats at you. RJ attempted 17 of Carolina's 39 shots tonight in the second half. I mean, he was the guy that was taking shots, and you said it a second ago, out of sync. It looked like, particularly from the likes of Harrison Ingram, Elliott Cadeau, and Cormac Ryan, particularly Cormac and Ingram in that second half, it didn't look like they wanted the ball. It didn't look like they wanted to shoot the ball. It didn't look like they were making themselves available to shoot the ball. It was just a very lackluster performance from those 3 in particular. And it was a lackluster performance from those 3 particular offensively last night as well. So this is a consistent theme in the ACC tournament. But RJ and Armando, just too much relied on them. And I'll throw one more stat at you. RJ and Armando combined to score 92 of Carolina's 148 points over the last two nights. Again, just showcases the over-reliance on those two guys. That's not a recipe for success for these Tar Heels, and the goal moving into the NCAA tournament, Carolina has to get back to that more balanced approach offensively. But tonight, I think, was another prime example of, hey, you can't just rely on RJ and Armando to win these games, particularly in March. You got to have more from other guys, and just didn't have it tonight.
Yeah, if that's the recipe moving forward, they will not get past the Sweet 16.
Yeah, they
may not get out of Charlotte.
Yeah,
they may not get out of Charlotte, and we've talked all year long about the third score. I've written about it a gazillion times. I've talked about it almost a gazillion times. And I kind of figured Harrison or Cormac would have a big night tonight because neither of them did last night.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I agree with you. I thought for the first time this year, and this goes back to the other losses. I thought for the first time this year, Harrison and Cormac didn't look comfortable with the ball, wanting that shot late. And I'm not saying that that's the case. I said that's the way it looked. That's an observation. I'm not saying Cormac didn't want to take the shot. I'm not saying that. I just said it looked like it. He had one right in front of me, a three right in front of me, just a quick shot, a little too quick. Remember when he struggled earlier this year? Sometimes he'd get rid of it super quick. It didn't seem like it was the same rhythm shot as some of the others. Harrison passed one up. Harrison drove the right baseline in the second half, had a lane to the basket and kicked it out.
Mm-hmm.
They were out of sorts. They were out of character. I asked them about being out of character. They said they were out of character, and offensively they were completely out of sync the last 12 minutes of the game. And they did not expect this. I think they were stunned. They were shocked that they were in this position. And the beautiful thing is for them is their season didn't end tonight. They have another tournament, a much more important tournament coming up. And I guess if you're going to get one last reminder that you need, a series of reminders, they got it tonight, because that ain't how you want to play in March, man. I've seen really good teams get upset and eliminated, and it carried the look that it carried for the Tar Heels tonight from the opening tip. They never got it. And when they were frantically trying to come back, they were just all over the place. It was like dropping an egg on the floor. It just splatters everywhere. And that's kind of what they were as a basketball team tonight. It was surprising to see, because we really haven't seen them play poorly. Just last night, I rooted off the list of losses since Kentucky. And even in Kentucky, they had a chance to send overtime with the last possession. That they're barely losing these games. They're always in position to win. They were not in position to win tonight. It was 61-58. RJ hit a jumper, and I think it was 8:02 left. 61-58. And I thought, okay, champions step forward, and they're probably going to do something here. And hell, State's gotten this far. Kudos to them. They didn't get stops.
Yeah,
couldn't stop Horn. Keats made a gutsy decision to get Horn back in pretty quickly after he picked up his fourth foul, because he knew to keep Carolina from going on a run, they had to score. They had to get a couple baskets. That was a period in the game where State just needed a couple baskets, and who got them? DJ Horn. Carolina could not stop him. Mm-hmm. They've done a really good job stopping dudes this year, and they did the last couple of games with Watkins with Florida State on Thursday, and then Leggett and Hinson yesterday. Not Horn. Horn was fantastic. Burns has got such an amazing touch around the basket, and they run so much stuff off of him when he has the ball. And Carolina just didn't do a good job with it. And I think that put all the stress offensively on them, and that's why they didn't play well. And I think RJ went into, I'm going to try to carry this on my back because it ain't working for the other guys. Mm-hmm. And I asked Armando that. Armando and Harrison were defensive of RJ. It wasn't a leading question that RJ was trying to do too much as a criticism of RJ. I just think that's the scenario they put themselves in.
Yeah.
Where, okay, well, the player of the year has to be a player of the year times 10 tonight in order for them to have any chance. And that's what RJ tried to do. And as a result, he took some tough shots that I think in a normal game in which Carolina is playing within character, not out of character, he doesn't take those shots. Mm-hmm. But Look, it was just a bad performance. It's a crappy game. And whatever happens moving forward, I don't think has anything to do with what happened here tonight, other than the fact that sometimes you need a little reminder. And we're going to talk about something next in a minute. So remind me when we go into it to tell you about me bringing up The last four Carolina UNC national champions didn't win this event. And I asked 3 players about it. So we'll get on that in a second. I'm telling you to remind me because I'm tired and all this stuff's going on around here. And I may forget to bring it up when we go into our next segment. But yeah, offensively, they stunk in the second half. But they lost the game because of lack of energy. They lost the game because they were horrible on defense. And they lost the game because they stunk offensively the last 12 minutes of the game. I don't ever remember seeing this team miss 11 straight shots at 14 out of 15. But yeah. I don't remember seeing them rotate as poorly defensively as they did tonight. I don't remember seeing them allow so many cuts in which they're trailing the cut all the time. I don't remember seeing them get out gritted, out intense. I can't say out intense. That's not even proper English. But
I know what you mean, though.
Outburned, out-spirited. I'm going back to cliches now. My dad's going to get ticked off at me, but they did. So it is what it is. They lost and they deserve to lose.
Yeah. I got Harrison Ingram, Elliott Cadeau, and Cormac Ryan shot a combined 7 for 26 tonight. That's just not a recipe for success for this team, particularly when it's lose and go home from now on. But let's talk about what this means, AJ. Disappointing loss for North Carolina. Obviously not what they wanted to happen against an in-state rival in NC State. I was watching some, had ESPN on after the game and had some bracketologist on there talking about, the number 1 seeding. Still, at least this guy still had Carolina as a number 1 seed in the West. I know we talked about it a second ago. It still feels like that's likely, although we'll have to see what happens on Selection Sunday tomorrow. But, I think my number 1 question is, I think a lot of Carolina fans' question following this game is, you just mentioned it, a lot of Carolina national championship teams do not win the ACC tournament. So I think there still is a little bit of hope and optimism this team can go do something in March. But I think the number 1 question mark on Carolina fans' minds right now is how much of a cause for concern is this performance tonight? Because like you said, this is one of the worst performances we've seen from this Carolina team, certainly in the last few months, arguably all season.
It's the worst performance of the season.
Yeah, and it's coming. It comes at a really bad time. Again, like I just said a few minutes ago, I mean, you lose and it's go home now moving forward. So you look at it one of 2 ways. Carolina either learns from this and takes this experience on into the NCAA tournament and makes a run and fixes those things that they struggled with. I'm not just going to say tonight, too, because I've talked a lot about Ingram and Cormac and Elliott Cadeau's offensive struggles. That was against Pitt as well. That has to change going into the tournament. But how much of a concern do you think tonight's performance is for North Carolina?
This was by far their worst performance of the season. There's no question about it. Mm-hmm. But I think it probably comes at a great time because, as I asked Armando and Harrison, I probably wasn't so very eloquent in asking the question because it's a tough question to ask. But, okay, you wanted to cut down the nets. You wanted a championship. You wanted to hang another banner. But if you're going to have a purge, sometimes we have a purge. Sometimes we need a cleansing. Mm-hmm. Things can be going along great. Suddenly you get ill. You need a cleansing. You get all the bad stuff out of you, and then you wake up the next day and another cliche, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And yeah, cliche the hell out of this podcast, man.
It's almost 1 a.m., AJ. Use as many cliches as you need.
I'm going to wear a shirt with a big C on it. People are going to think it's some team, but it's cliche, man. Or Arturo, which is what my original press pass was, because Emily, I can't remember that last name. I'm not going to give her last name on a video like this. That wouldn't be fair. But
yeah, probably not a good idea.
She gave me the wrong name at first, so but then they got it straightened out. Anyway, maybe I just look like an Arturo. So if you're going to purge now, because in the end, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter. And that's the thing. And this is why I think the ACC tournament and major conference tournaments are going to go away, because I'm looking at the boards and half the people are irate and the world's coming to an end. You know, half people, guys, pump the brakes. Our last 4 national champions didn't win the ACC tournament, which brings me to what I wanted you to remind me of that you didn't remind me of.
Didn't need to.
I asked Armando, who knows the history, so I didn't really have to tell him too much. He knew because he's nodding when I asked. I asked RJ and I asked Seth. I said, the last 4 North Carolina national champions, Dean's last champion in '93, they lost in the title game to Georgia Tech, who then lost to Southern in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. The 05, 09, and 17 Roy teams did not win the ACC tournament either, and they won the national championship. So I asked them what they knew about it. Armando did. And he's like, yeah, it kind of perked them up a little bit. And Seth and RJ, I said, what do you take from that? And I said, obviously, you're not those teams, and you can't say, well, just because they did it, that means we will. But the point is that the season didn't end today for North Carolina. They have another tournament to win, and a much more important tournament to win. And honestly, if they go on and win the national championship, Carolina fans are even going to want to win the ACC tournament in the future even less than they wanted to win this one, because they think that it's some kind of good omen. So what it means is that they're going to have an opportunity to have a lot of reminders, feel like crap, angry with themselves, and they got several days to be focused, because they'll be in Charlotte. That's a Thursday, Saturday. There's a Thursday, Saturday game, so they'll have practice in Charlotte, the open practice on Wednesday, and it's now Sunday morning. It's 12:47. Yeah, we got to get out of here pretty soon. So. No, we do. Well, they're sticking us in the Wizards media room. So,
do they kick you out after? Is this just the final?
Yeah, because they're breaking everything down, because the Wizards have a game tomorrow night. So I don't know. I can't
believe the Wizards have a game tomorrow night. They couldn't wait a couple of days.
Well, I mean, even still, it's tomorrow night. I've covered basketball games at PNC. Yeah. Back when I used to cover NC State, I covered a noon game on a Sunday one time when Chandler Parsons hit that long shot to beat him at the buzzer, and I'm still in the press box working, because I covered the hockey game that night also. I was at Fox Sports at that time. So I never left the arena. I was there all day. And so they could do that here, but they're not. But anyway, I don't think it has any bearing on what happens moving forward. The only thing is it's a possibility that it bumps them out of the one, but I think all 4 1 seeds were locks going into today, and they're going to stay the way they were. The body of work for 4.5 months should matter a lot more than the last 48 hours.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, I think we've always said it, but it's not rocket science. It's pretty common sense. The better barometer for the season. I tweeted after the game, but Carolina won the ACC regular season title. That is a 20-game marathon. That is a better judge of a team's season than a 3-4 in NC State's case 5-game tournament. Major credit to State. They fully deserve it. That they deserve to win this tournament with the run they made, and fully deserve to beat Carolina tonight. But like you said on Twitter, there isn't, and even in our message boards and on social media right now, not really a massive panic I'm seeing amongst Carolina fans. There's always that small sect that does panic and does overreact after games, but I think overall it's a pretty, still bigger things ahead. Let's see what happens next week.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get out of here just in a second, but I will say this. My vibe in the locker room after the game was that the players were very disappointed they didn't win a championship, but I think they were more disappointed in how they played. And that's probably what you would want to hear if you're a Carolina fan. Yeah. I think they were surprised. So again, every once in a while you got to shake the tree. Every once in a while you got to prune your roses, man, so they can keep blooming. So maybe this was a pruning of the roses for the Tar Heels tonight.
Yeah. I mean, only time will tell. We'll see what happens obviously starting next week, hopefully in Charlotte, and see what happens the rest of the March and April, hopefully for the Tar Heels. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. AJ's about to get kicked out of Capital One Arena, so we got to go ahead.
We're doing a pod tomorrow night, right? Are we going to do one tomorrow night?
Yeah, we'll do a little selection Sunday pod. It's not tomorrow night, it's tonight at this point, but we'll do a little selection. Right. We'll do a little selection Sunday podcast later this evening, so stay tuned for that one, and we'll see where the Tar Heels end up in the NCAA tournament. Again, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. See y'all next time. Thanks.